So everybody's wondering, and everybody's probably heard about the land grab going on in Maui. Everybody knows this is very clear. That our government and certain large corporations were trying to buy out the residents in Lahaina in Maui. The residents there had no interest in selling. They've been trying to price them out of the market with people like Oprah buying up and scooping the land. And then, of course, conveniently, a quote-unquote wildfire occurs. The celebrities, of course, show up. They put their name out there. Matthew McConaughey, who owns land there, sending a plane of supplies there. Bezos giving $100 million. Oprah showing up, putting pillows behind people's backs. This is classic Satanism 101. And that's why it's called Satanism 101 at this point, because their father is the liar, the devil. He has been from the beginning. And so are these people. They are the most wicked people you could possibly imagine, but they put up the front. They're the most wonderful people that you could possibly imagine. And all the people out there fall for it. They buy it hook, line, and sinker. They look at people like me, and they think I'm a horrible person because I raise my voice because I don't go with the flow here. They're like, that guy's a horrible person. He's gonna, well, he doesn't give the money to the charities. Oh, yeah, well, I also don't commit the sacrifices. Okay, these people are the ones responsible. They have blood on their hands, and then they come forward because they want to look like they're good people. So the question is, who's going to get this land grab, right? Now we already heard the governor of Hawaii, straight from Bagelville, who of course has the last name Green, who came forward and talked about how he's coming up with plans as quickly as he can for the government to get the land, which should make people there very, very angry.
I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost. We want this to be something that we remember after the pain passes as a magic place. And Lahaina will rebuild. The tragedy right now is the loss of life. The buildings can be rebuilt over time. Even the banyan tree may survive. But we don't want this to become a cleared space where then, yes, people from overseas just come and decide they're going to take it. The state will take it and preserve it first.
So if you aren't getting it yet, you should be. Right? You have the governor, instead of caring for the people and doing all this, of course he's showing up there pretending like he cares, but his main focus here is to figure out how he can take everybody's land from them, of course, right? And then we have the obvious people, right, who are going to come in and try to grab the land. We have Bezos, obviously Oprah has enough land there, and then everybody's pointing a finger at who? BlackRock. If you don't know BlackRock, well, let's introduce you to BlackRock. I've covered him many times over. Larry Fink of BlackRock. Larry Fink is the one responsible for most of the problems going on in the world. That's right, most of the psyops, most of the problems, even included stuff on the railroad, like in Ohio, goes back to Larry Fink, because they own the railroads, they own the real estate, they own the media, they own it all. But Larry doesn't seem to be under enough scrutiny, so let's put Larry under enough scrutiny, people in Maui. And don't be surprised, of course, if most people think BlackRock's going to take the land. If Larry uses a shell company here to buy the land out in Maui, because Larry doesn't want people to get on his trail. And I wonder what religion Larry believes in. No, it's like an aardvark. But Larry, I believe the things that Larry believes in, based on, well, everything we can all guess as far as what he follows, that he has been chosen to do these things, and he's been chosen to rule over us, and that everybody else is cattle. There's specific people who believe this, believe it or not. As crazy as that sounds, and Larry's one of them. So Larry, over the years I've covered him, has openly talked about controlling our behavior, and how important it is for corporations and businesses, et cetera, to control people's behavior. And that's what you're seeing going on with business. Okay, they can control people's behavior. Because if they find out that they don't like what you're saying on social media, or listening in on your phone calls, because that's what they do, and they do it here in America too, they just don't have the right to do anything yet. But if they're listening in, well, they actually do have the right to do something. But if you're just saying, like, you don't like the government, et cetera, they can't really do much. But if you threaten on the phone with somebody else, they can show up at your door. But in communist China, they could shut off your bank account. They could prevent you from traveling. They can put you in jail for the most part. And eventually here in America, that's what it will be as well. Just your prison will be your home. You won't be allowed to leave your home. You'll be locked in with your smart technology. The locks will be on. The air conditioner will be off. Enjoy your life. You won't be able to shower, take a dump, or have food. All because you question Big Brother. Here's Larry talking about behavioral control.
You now make a point of that's an investment criteria for you. Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year. And what we're doing internally is, if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay, we're doing the same. And so it's just you have to force behaviors, and if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not just not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities, and we're going to have to force change.
So Larry is communist filth, and anyone who's a communist is obviously an enemy to humanity. They are the worst people imaginable. Anyone who supports it is clueless. And last I checked, this country was a capitalist country, and when you have elections in this country, which we all know are fake, there's never, and I'll do a separate video on it, it's not a matter of, well, the politician we pick can change the entire structure of government. That's not on the table, okay? But they're making it on the table because they've pretty much destroyed this country as a republic, and they're now trying to destroy capitalism. But if you're somebody who supports communism, here's a little expression, get the F out, okay? Go to China, deal with it for a month, and I guarantee you come back here crying and being thrilled to work at a gas station, being thrilled to work wherever you might get a job. Wherever it is, doesn't matter. Work is work. But here, obviously, we have spoiled brats, people who think that they should have everything handed to them, everything should be equal, and then when they realize that they're put into enslavement through communism, then they'll change their tune pretty quick, but it'll be too late. So Larry Fink is likely the one who has been looking at this land here. Why? Well, not just because of real estate to make money, because Larry is, of course, going to be one of the people who develops the smart cities. That's right. Because Larry is currently, he's got his hands full. Obviously, he's got his hands involved in all of our lives in business. Larry just likes to needle into people's lives. And, he doesn't want corporations to hire white people, et cetera, et cetera. Larry's responsible for the destruction of humanity. And Larry is getting on people's radar, which is needed. But Larry also currently is very busy over in Ukraine. You may have heard of Ukraine. Yeah, that land over there. Larry is investing his money in rebuilding Ukraine, his trillions of dollars. Don't be suspicious about that. And of course, Larry's going to be doing the same thing in Maui. Just like I said, Larry will probably be using a shell company, because if his name gets attached to this, well, Larry's really going to be on the radar. So Larry's probably scrambling right now because they're surprised by how many people are talking about direct energy weapons and how many people are not buying the wildfire narrative, especially since trees are still standing and unburnt. So Larry's probably going, okay, we might have to put this in someone else's name. Maybe we could just let Jeff Bezos buy it up because people are still going to use Amazon. Whoever ends up with their name attached to this land over there is going to become an enemy to many, many people. Because there's many people over in Maui who are suffering in the Hawaiian Islands and who are waiting to find out what occurs here. You have the governor saying that they're going to come in and take the land. They're trying to figure out how. And then you have developers like Larry Fink who are drooling and ready because the plan's already been in place, which is why they did it, to turn this into a smart city. But let's take a closer look at BlackRock, because there's a lot of people who are new to the channel and they need information on BlackRock, because once they start realizing who's responsible for this stuff, well, then they can start sharing that information, and then, well, maybe something can, stop it from happening.
This is a company most people have never heard of, and this company quite literally owns the world. Most US banks are controlled by BlackRock. BlackRock owns all the major pharmaceutical companies. BlackRock owns most of the mainstream media, and BlackRock oversees roughly 10% of all stocks traded worldwide. And this company is now taking over governments. All of this has allowed BlackRock to amass $10 trillion in assets. Yes, trillion. BlackRock is worth half of America's total GDP. It's so crazy that the US and Chinese government now rely on BlackRock to escape recessions, with BlackRock's founder and CEO now sitting on the boards of the influential Council on Foreign Relations and the World Economic Forum. In the words of Henry Kissinger, whoever controls the money controls the world, and no other company in history has had this much global influence. And what's even crazier is that BlackRock did this in just 34 years. But you want to know the best part? You've probably never heard of them for a reason which will become clearer later on. Because after you watch this video, you'll soon understand the real-world consequences of BlackRock's vast control.
Full-scale invasion, the likes of which we have since World War II, of Russia into Ukraine.
And those high gas prices mean the cost of everything that needs to be transported is on the rise.
So then how could BlackRock gain so much influence over the world? How could BlackRock go from being just a boring investment firm to the most powerful company that has ever existed? Well, to start, we have to delve into the past of how Larry Fink made BlackRock. Larry was born into a wealthy Los Angeles family in 1952, and from the start, he was always hungry for power, with his early years spent pursuing a career in politics. But he would gain a BA in political science from UCLA. However, he soon enough realized that politics isn't where the real power is, money is. Following this, he changed his focus early on to go into banking and real estate. And while at college, Fink was immersing himself in the world of the rich and powerful, having been a full-time member of the secretive Kappa Beta Phi, a group that's members included Michael Bloomberg and the Goldman Sachs chairmen. Fink took full advantage of these connections and started a career in the mortgage bond department at First Boston, a boring New York-based investment bank. This was where Larry would make his mark on the financial world, because over his time at First Boston, Fink became one of the highest earning employees, generating over $1 billion. He was unstoppable, and it seemed like he was going to be crowned CEO. Larry became an expert in these little understood investments during his time. However, this success didn't come without a price. He wasn't going to make this money for someone other than him, and so he began creating a ticking time bomb, and only he knew how to defuse it. So in 1986, his risky practices and ambition caught up to him. After a few too many risky trades, Larry made a huge blunder. He lost $100 million of his bank's money in just the space of months. All the goodwill and reputation he had gained was crumbling into dust, leading to him being banished from First Boston. It seemed like world domination was just a silly fantasy, that he would never make it to the top. However, Fink wasn't giving up his power this easily. Instead, he would use this disaster to his advantage, vowing to make risk management and avoidance his main focus from now on. And so after becoming unemployed at age 36, Fink would team up with some of his old connections from Kappa Beta Phi. And in 1988, BlackRock was formed. In no time at all, Larry was making bank. In just 5 years, BlackRock went from being worth $5 million to over $8 billion. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. During this time, a power struggle would emerge between who would control BlackRock's future, because Fink wanted a bigger piece of the pie. He didn't want to share his plans for world domination. So in 1995, he would pressure one of the co-founders, Schwartzman, to sell their stake in BlackRock for $250 million, a stake that would now be worth over $12 billion alone. But after these power games, Larry Fink's path to world domination was unstoppable. Larry Fink became more and more powerful over the next decade, but this still wasn't enough for his ambition. Now earlier on, I mentioned a ticking time bomb that Fink helped create in his early days at First Boston. Well, this time bomb was now ready to explode, and in 2008, the worst financial crash since the Great Depression struck the world.
Traders saying this is the craziest day they have ever seen in these markets. Veteran traders saying they've never seen anything like it. The movement in oil prices so fast.
The most serious recession in decades. And that means life, as most Americans know, it is about to change.
And the best part is, this was all under Larry's control. Larry Fink's mortgage-backed securities had been the fuse all along. And because Larry Fink knew the 2008 crash would happen, BlackRock's focus on asset management sealed them from the crisis. In fact, this disaster was an opportunity for Larry Fink, because Larry was the only man on Wall Street who could fix this crisis. And so with Larry's personal connections with the Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, BlackRock secured an uncontested contract to manage the assets of multiple banks that crumbled during the crisis, exploiting this disaster to become the most powerful man on Wall Street. But still, this was only Wall Street. This still wasn't close to world domination. So how could Larry Fink control governments and the world economy? Well, BlackRock made another breakthrough by offering ETFs. Now this might sound quite technical, but ETFs are a type of investment fund that puts money into all the companies in a certain industry. And these new investment funds proved wildly popular because of the stability and solid returns. And unsurprisingly, BlackRock became the largest player in this new market, reaching the top of its industry, sucking up money from everywhere using its new money management platform. From the biggest banks to the smallest retirement funds, BlackRock had a hand in it all. BlackRock was starting to control everything. They bought stakes in pretty much every major corporation on the stock market. I mean, if you look into who owns pretty much any major company, you're almost guaranteed to find BlackRock's name. Larry could also see the power technology would have in the future economy, which is why BlackRock poured massive wealth to build a supercomputer that analyzes what investments will make money. This program named Aladdin was going to manage over $20 trillion worth of assets for BlackRock. For context, $20 trillion is more than the entire United States' GDP. BlackRock would then use this money and its assets to further exert their control over the economy, and now they are inextricably tied to governments. And like 2008, the Federal Reserve hired BlackRock to manage their investments to protect them from coronavirus-led recessions. And BlackRock has used this dependence to grow their empire even further, allowing Larry Fink to be a billionaire oligarch that holds unprecedented power over not just the economy, but the entire world. He controls trends, culture, foreign policy, and the banks. He has world leaders at his beck and call, with BlackRock overseeing assets worth 10% of the world's global economy. BlackRock now owns stakes in every industry, from media companies, banks, oil companies, and weapon manufacturers. And in recent years, the consequences are becoming dire as Larry Fink begins to assert his control over the world. One of the ways BlackRock controls the world so well is through its control of the media. Together with Vanguard, an investment company they also partly own, BlackRock now controls 18% of Fox, 16% of CBS, 13% of Comcast, who themselves own NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, and Sky, and they even own 12% of Disney. This is very important because it means that for any of these companies to decide on company policy, they must now also consult with BlackRock before doing so. And it's just the same with big tech. BlackRock is now the biggest institutional investor in Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, and so many more. I mean, the list of their investments in companies is just endless. And by extending its reach in such a dramatic way, BlackRock now has control over more than 90% of the media, which might also be why you've never heard of them. Because controlling the media is a very important step for BlackRock to take over the world. If everyone knew the consequences of BlackRock owning over $9.5 trillion in assets, some questions might start to be raised. And you see, BlackRock's control isn't just extending through information in the media, but also through the entire world's economic and political data. And as I mentioned before, this is all done through Aladdin, where Aladdin accurately predicts the outcome of every single investment. But the question is, where does Aladdin get this information from? Well, that's where things become very jarring. You see, because of BlackRock's ownership of banks, insurance companies, social media giants, and even pension funds, Aladdin now possesses huge amounts of personal data on everyone who's ever knowingly or unknowingly given BlackRock money. And with such a powerful tool under their arsenal, everyone now wants a piece of the pie. And by controlling this much data, BlackRock now controls governments, because BlackRock can use this data to sway companies and even government decisions. For example, BlackRock successfully lobbied to get a contract to manage the EU's regulation of banks. However, this backroom deal is now being investigated, as BlackRock themselves own the banks they should be regulating. And this is just one of the many examples of these sorts of actions. A 2016 study in the Journal of Finance documented that investment companies like BlackRock show, quote, widespread behind-the-scenes intervention in the companies that they own stakes in. And this problem only gets worse as BlackRock owns stakes in nearly all major publicly traded companies. And now with our current recession, BlackRock is buying as much homes and real estate as possible, causing regular house prices to skyrocket. BlackRock profits when a society doesn't own their homes but rents, because BlackRock can squeeze even more money out of the economy through mortgaging off these artificially inflated homes. But this whole situation becomes even more sinister when you realize BlackRock's power is now being compromised by other actors. For example, in August 2020, BlackRock became the first foreign company to be allowed access into China's mutual fund industry. This means that BlackRock can now invest and own parts of Chinese companies. God only knows what BlackRock promised Xi Jinping if they're allowed in, but by being allowed in, BlackRock now works with companies that are blacklisted by the US. One example is BlackRock's investment in a CCP-owned company called Hikvision. Hikvision makes security and communications technology for both civilian and military use by the Chinese government. And they're also known for their wide-scale human rights abuses.
How do you think your facial recognition recognition technology will change China.
Everything happened in the public can be record.
Now, this money being invested into China isn't just BlackRock's own money. Most of this money comes from the pension funds and bank accounts that ordinary people pay into BlackRock inadvertently. Through BlackRock controlling banks, people have no choice about whether they give BlackRock and the CCP this money. That's if they even know about BlackRock. This recent trend of BlackRock funding authoritarian regimes can only mean bad things for Western democracy, because this empowers regimes like China and Russia. It gives credence to dystopian regimes, and this trend is now promoting others to do the same. I mean, BlackRock recently recommended that their investors triple their investments in China. This would place billions more into a dystopian regime at the expense of the West. And the worst part is that China sees the companies that operate within it as simply extensions of the one-party state. They own these companies, and in return, the companies act out the CCP's will, which is a worrying fact when you consider that BlackRock owns the entire world's data. TikTok's data harvesting is nothing compared to BlackRock's. BlackRock knows the entire world's bank details, their preferences, tastes. It sets social trends. It oversees entire countries. So any increase in Chinese investments will see not just BlackRock's influence grow, but also China's influence grow in BlackRock. Since August of 2020, when BlackRock were first allowed into the Chinese economy, they've only poured more and more money into these Chinese companies. Clearly, Aladdin the supercomputer sees this as a profitable move, but what it might not see is the destruction of Western values. It might not see how the CCP could influence the world economy and global politics even more than it already is. It might not see that BlackRock's future investments will be the catalyst towards this change. I mean, who knows how much more BlackRock will invest in China? But if their growth over the past year is a sign of anything, China will inevitably become a much bigger part of BlackRock's future. And make no mistake, this will have dire consequences. But the cherry on top of all of this is that BlackRock is the main force behind the sheepish woke lecturing that tells you how guilty you should feel. In 2018, around the dawn of the new generation of political correctness, Larry wrote a letter telling all the companies under a stun to, quote, contribute to society or risk losing our support, adding that, quote, society is demanding that companies, both public and private, serve a social purpose. Which is a very interesting statement coming from a company that is quite literally funding the persecution of Uyghur Muslims and the imprisonment of the Chinese population. A company that is funding a dystopic nuclear regime that is quite literally threatening the very fabric of Western civilization. And so with BlackRock's push for, quote, social purposes, companies now have an ESG score, or in other words, sustainable investing scores, where you have a rating system based on your company's political and social facades. So for example, doing a woke ad for a company like Nike or silencing any controversial political views on social media will help you get the high ESG score.
They will, on their investor relations page, they'll show you their ESG score. ESG stands for environmental, social, corporate governance. And this is where the woke culture comes from. So they've created this kind of phony baloney rating system that says, well, if you, I'm exaggerating, but if you mention that you are, have a green agenda and you believe in carbon credits and you might trade some credit somewhere, then you get a higher score and therefore you're more investable. And it's very interesting to see how big investors like insurance company, institutional investors, they are steering away from anything that does not have the right ESG rating.
Economic Forum and his position on the boards of the Council on Foreign Relations votes is dictated by investment boards controlled by BlackRock, delivering us a more generic, mindless, vapid, and vicious culture. Perhaps BlackRock is just a monument to a world divided between too big to fail companies and powerless, moneyless, and joyless citizens, where companies like BlackRock buy up all our houses, inflating our currencies and profit from our conflicts and turmoil. That's why you can't buy a house. That's why we're more divided than ever. That's why too big to fail companies are defining life in the 2020s. Because we no longer live under free market capitalism. We live under a system for socialism for the rich.
So that's the wonderful world of BlackRock and Larry Fink. They control the thought process of people. They control the behavior of people. They have the ability to derail trains where they want, because if you're not familiar with all the train derailments and the food shortages, Larry's connected to all that too. Larry's really just been meddling in people's lives, right? And Larry is really, putting his name out there now. You better watch him. I mean, Larry loves the attention. Oh, and by the way, because I've seen recently that a lot of Trump MAGA people have flown in and don't seem to understand that that's controlled as well. So it's QAnon. It's something they created actually because of people such as myself and many others out there who are no longer around because they've put up a white flag, and I can't blame them because the censorship's so annoying. But QAnon was created so they could lump us into a group and then persecute. And it was based off of a lot of stuff that good people were actually exposing. And now it's tied into Trump, of course, because they need to lump political parties. And people like me are independent. We're not part of political parties. I'm a follower of Christ and Christ alone, not of man. But most people are putting their faith in Donald Trump, and they don't seem to remember Operation Warp Speed, of course. But they also don't remember that Larry Fink is best buddies with Donald Trump. So anyone out there who's awake and they're like, oh, we got to go after BlackRock. Okay, but then they're also going, well, we need MAGA. And don't give me the lesser of two evils nonsense, because whatever ends up happening is part of their plan. So if Trump is put in office, because it'll be put in office, it's still part of their plan, and they're hurting you. So be careful of what you follow and where you go, because you're going to be going into a honeypot. But Larry and Donald are very, very close. So don't fall into the deceptions, of course. Too many people out there are just obviously on board drinking the Kool-Aid. They forget about Operation Warp Speed conveniently. They forget about Trump's connection in the past to Ep, connection in the past to the Clintons, connection to Larry Fink currently, and they just let it go. Connection to Oprah, right? Oh, they're suddenly not friends anymore, right? All Trump and all these people, because Trump's not a communist. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, come on, would you? So the land grab is in place, right? They're not going to just back out from the land grab. They did this for a reason. Not go, we're going to right? We know they're in a smart city, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, how do they narrate this, right? How do they come out and go, well, this is who's coming in to buy land? Because whoever does it is going to have, I don't want to say a bullseye on because that sounds like a threat in today's society, but they're going to have a mark on him where people are going to be like, okay, this guy has his hand in what happened here. This guy here. And Bezos is probably the one they were going to put his name on it, but now he's probably like, I don't want to be a part of this. Oprah can't believe that she was trending and all the backlash that she's getting because their philanthropy garbage is starting to wear off. And one of the first videos I ever did, again, I've said it recently a bunch, I'll say it one last time, was on philanthropy, because all secret societies teach philanthropy. You got to follow philanthropy, et cetera, because it puts a cover over them that they can be protected from. You can't question them that they're doing anything with children. They give all this money to the children's hospitals. You're the one who's a problem. How dare you even think that? How could you say something about Oprah? What have you done? Did you go put a pillow behind some guy's back in a shelter? Well, the majority of us who do good and help people out who need help don't go out boasting about it. I've helped people out all the time, okay? I don't go around going, hey, guess what? I gave somebody this. I gave a guy that. I gave a damsel in distress this to help out their lives, to help out the... Because, anybody with the Holy Spirit wouldn't even think to do something like that. But these people don't just think to do it. They make it their way. They hire camera crews like Oprah to show up there so that people go, what a wonderful person Oprah is. And it works on the zombies. It does work. I have people over here who are like, what have you done? What did you do? She was at the shelter, yeah? And I was saying stuff, why don't you use her house for the people? She doesn't want to go in their home. People are like, would you do it? Well, I'm not the one responsible for it. I mean, my hands are clean. Are Oprah's or any of these people? Of course not. We know their hands are deep in all of it. So that was just an education on Larry Fink. I don't need to continue to go on. I recommend you share that with people who don't know. I know the majority of you do, but I warn the majority of you who do to stop tying Donald Trump into saving us from this stuff. Larry Fink's his buddy, okay? Larry Fink is probably one of the most evil people on the planet. And you could, if you're waking up and you're angry, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, whatever your political party is, and you listen to this and you hate me, that's fine. But realize that this stuff goes back to Larry Fink and others like Larry Fink. Okay? They're the ones making you feel this way. They're the ones causing the divide. They're the ones who are meddling in your life. They're the ones doing it. They're the ones who want to control your behavior. You want them to control your behavior? You want them to control what you can and cannot say? I mean, it doesn't matter what political party you are. I would think not. But they plan on doing it. They plan on using you and manipulating you into letting them. And that's what they're currently doing. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all doing well. Reminder, subscribe to my other channels if you haven't yet. And as always, God bless you and your families.
At FanDuel, we know hockey fans don't just have a hunch. You have a hockey hunch. You could tell they're going to light the lamp before they do. You could see that assist coming a mile away.
Down the board, pass in front.
And you just know when your goalie is totally in the zone. So put your hockey hunches together for a same-game parlay. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
I've been doing this a long time, and a lot of people have great memories from the different eras that I've been in. 25 years ago, you could do a lot less and have people think it's an amazing match.
No way this is bigger than the Attitude Era.
From a popularity standpoint, the Attitude Era was bigger. You weren't making the money that you are now.
You have one of the greatest debuts in WWE history.
When the idea came up to end the countdown clock during the Rock's promo, it doesn't get any bigger.
You've gotten some ridiculous things over.
You Just Made the List is one that to this day people still talk about.
Do you want to call your last match?
Big retirement match. That's a lot of pressure.
You're going to go in the Hall of Fame at some point.
In my mind, I'm already in the Hall of Fame.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, man. In your new Fancy Pants studio.
The new digs here, right?
I know, man.
Just two Canadians hanging out.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah.
You have just gone through the roof with all of your amazing guests over the last little while. You see, you can get guests that I can't get.
That
most
is
of the time.
Oh, because
Yeah,
you can't
because of the
WWE
political
people.
way. And it's like it's so funny because Undertaker, who was like the quietest guy in wrestling, is now like everywhere, doing everyone's show, having his own show. And I'm like, I just missed him.
It's funny because like he didn't break kayfabe for so
Right,
long,
ever,
and now he's like, I'm going to tell you
That's what I'm saying.
everything.
What do you want to know? I will tell you all the skinny and all the dirt. But yeah, congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you so much. He wouldn't tell me how he shot the electricity from his arms.
Magic.
Oh,
There's certain things, certain things that the lowly humans just aren't allowed to know just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a clip of you came up recently. You and MacGruber came up recently.
Yeah.
And every time I see that, it makes me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
The delivery of like, it's fun to say them. It's fun to hear them. That's why I say them. That's why I listen.
That was all improv.
The whole scene?
Not the whole scene, but that whole part was all improv. Because when they asked us to do the movie, I was like, well, what's the script like? I want to see it. And there was like a couple lines. I think I was the only guy in the group of bounty hunters that MacGruber assembled that had a line. But typical Jericho, it's like, I want to have more lines. So Will Forte is a groundling, and I am an honorary groundling. So I thought, well, if I just improv, either he's going to yes and me, the #1 rule of improv, or he's going to say stick to the script, kid, or the director will say it, or whatever it may be. And I'll just go with it. So I did that. He responded like we did, and the director loved it. He's like, let's do it. So we did a couple more takes, but that was all spontaneous because I just thought, well, let me just play with it and see what he does.
Man, that scene's just so fun.
It really is. And that movie, as a matter of fact, it's pretty funny. So I just did a show about the SNL for SNL 50 on the SNL movies. And I thought there was like 30 of them, but there's only 11 official ones. And MacGruber is a lot of times voted the best of all of them. Behind Wayne's World and Blues Brothers, or those three are kind of the top.
Yeah.
And when that came out, I remember the director said, good stuff. I remember the director said, this is not going to do well in the theaters, but it'll become a cult classic. And he was right. I think it did like 9 million in the box office. But since then, it has become a cult classic. As a matter of fact, they're doing a screening of it at the Alamo Drafthouse in LA, and it sold out like in 5 minutes.
Oh, amazing.
So it's at that point now
Yeah.
because it is just a ridiculously goofy, fun movie for sure. And I'm glad to be part of it.
With everything you've done in your career, there's people that maybe haven't watched a wrestling match, or maybe there's people that haven't listened to a Fozzy song, or maybe there are people that haven't seen one of your movies.
Right.
If someone has just seen you from movies, what are the movies you get recognized for the most?
Well, MacGruber's one. As a matter of fact, when I went to an SNL after party a few years ago, it was on Halloween, and John Mayer came up to me dressed in a stormtrooper outfit, and he started talking to me like these kind of weird lines and weird gibberish and all this stuff. And I realized he was quoting that scene from MacGruber verbatim. And it's his favorite movie of all time. I'm like, MacGruber, oh yeah, it's, I can just see the drama and the dichotomy between that and the Egyptians of the 18th century. Like, it's like really deep types of stuff he was talking about. So that's one. Obviously Terrifier is the big one, both of them, but especially 3 with the horrific death that my character had. But yeah, I've had a lot of kind of lower movies, like Sharknado 3 was a big one. Whenever they do the marathons, I saw Sharknado 3. But I think Terrifier is the biggest one. Obviously, it was the #1 movie in America, which is pretty cool to be able to say that. I don't care if my scene was 2 minutes or 20 minutes. It still was to be a part of that with a pretty good kill scene in it. So that's probably the one right now. And here's the thing with horror movies. Once you've made an appearance in a horror movie and have like a pretty cool scene, you can now do horror conventions, for the next 30 years. So between that and then Dark Match, the one that comes out January 31st, another horror movie, it's like I'm becoming a Scream King.
Yeah. We're all about setting goals and actually hitting them. And what you fuel your body with really matters, which is why I want to talk about today's sponsor, Huel. Their Black Edition ready to drink is a complete meal in a bottle. High in protein, low in sugar, and packed with all the nutrients that you need to perform at your best. You can find Huel at GNC, Amazon, or directly at Huel.com. And for new customers shopping at Huel.com, you can try it for 15% off and get a free gift when you use my exclusive code, which is INSIGHT. When I'm on the go recording interviews like this one that you're watching right now, sometimes it's hard to prepare a meal, and that's where Huel Black Edition really saves the day. It keeps me full, it keeps me energized, and ready to tackle whatever comes my way. Huel is a perfectly balanced meal, taking the guesswork out of eating healthy. There's no prep, no cooking, just grab a Huel and go. And it tastes amazing. You can choose from either chocolate or vanilla. I've been going with chocolate more often than not these days. High protein meals for under $5. My favorite is that black, ready to drink, 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, all in one bottle. So take the leap and join the other Hueligans, brother. Hueligans. This is an exclusive offer for new customers, only 15% off, and a free gift when you use the code INSIGHT at Huel.com. When you got Terrifier 3 after doing Terrifier 2, do you just get the script, flip right over to, where's my death scene in here?
Well, I mean, it was very much a closed, secret script. So what I got, you're looking at your 2 pages, there was basically the 3 or 4 pages of my scene, and that was it. So I didn't know where it was in the movie, I didn't know what happened before or afterwards, but they were really keeping it tight to make sure that none of the detailed plot points got out. So I didn't know anything about the movie until I saw it in the theater.
It's a heck of a death.
It's a hell of a death, yeah, it's pretty cool. They back in the old days, they would do a mold of your face with like putty or whatever it was. Now they do it with a digital kind of a wand, the same way they do action figures in wrestling. So they kind of took a scan of my face, and then I get on set, and there's this bust of my face screaming, but it's got skin tones, and it really looks just like me. So we do the scene, and there's 2 of them. The faceless chick puts her hand in my mouth, and Art the clown puts his hand here, and then there's blood coming out. Oh, okay, it's cut. Then they put my rubber face and rip the jaw off with the skin stretching, and it's like, this looks just like me. And I'm standing right off behind the camera watching this going like, I'm right here, guys. Like, this is fucking terrible. Like, talk about, it's surreal to watch.